So, being timely here, it's 1 o'clock. We'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. It's 1 o'clock. We'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. Now I have your attention. Thank you. We'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. So, with that, thank you all. I believe all members are present. Mr. Clerk, I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Is there a second? Very good, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Nay, the ayes have it. The first item is up for public hearing today. So with that, I would like to let those that are here that wish to speak, what we'll do is we will have a public hearing on this here this afternoon, and that's 7 o'clock this evening. Those that wish to speak, we're going to ask that you be sworn in by a representative of our law department. What will happen is we'll ask those who wish to speak in favor, we'll ask those who wish to speak against, and then after that, we'll open it up to the committee, and the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions, and then after that to all of council. And then this evening, in essence, we'll have another public hearing. After that public hearing is over, the committee will then make a recommendation to all of council. In all likeliness, though, with this capital budget, we'll be having review of the capital budget this evening, or this afternoon at 4 o'clock, and then again next week. So we'll be taking a deeper dive. We'll probably be taking time on that this evening before we actually pass it. But in terms of the public hearing, if there's anyone here wishing to speak this afternoon during the public hearing on the capital budget, please stand and be sworn in by a representative of our law department. Anyone here wishing to speak? Okay, I guess no one here this afternoon on this particular item. So given that, at this time, we'll read in the resolution adopting the 2020 Capital Investment and Community Development Program, legally referred to as the Capital Investment Budget. Ms. Tomic?
Good afternoon, committee chair, committee members. My name is Helen Tomic. I am the Long Range Planning Manager, and I'm here to present the 2020 Annual Capital Improvements Budget. This budget specifies the types, locations, costs, and general descriptions of the capital investments planned for 2020. The Capital Investment and Community Development Program includes items such as proposed street and sidewalk improvements, improvements to our parks, improvements to public facilities, the purchase of vehicles for police, fire, and public services, the purchase of 2 fire engines for the fire department, debt service on previously issued capital projects, and our water and sewer systems upgrades. The objective of the capital budget is to construct and or rehabilitate facilities vital to City of Akron residents, encourage investment, private investment, thereby increasing the city's tax base and annual revenues, and to leverage federal, local, state, and private funds whenever possible to fund our capital projects. Additionally, we look to provide capital improvements to support the long-term growth consistent with the city's land use and development guide plan. The proposed 2020 capital budget represents a total investment of $323 million. That includes $107 million of local government funds, $5.1 million of regional resources, $167,000 from the state of Ohio, $36 million from the federal government, and $8.2 million from private funds. As indicated earlier this afternoon, we will have a longer in-depth dive of the capital budget. This afternoon's sessions will include a focus on the transportation, parks and recreation, public facilities, housing and community services, and economic and miscellaneous sections of the budget. Next Monday, on February 3rd at 4 o'clock, we will focus on the water and sewer capital needs. We request that the budget be passed by February 10th of 2020. Our city charter requires that we have final passage by February 15th of every year. We are open to questions if you have any, and then, like I said, we'll have a deeper dive and more information on each of the projects at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Tomic. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the 2020 Capital Investment and Community Development Program. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor? I think we know this answer, but we have to do this. Anyone wishing to speak against the 2020 Capital Investment and Community Development Program? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone? Very good. We'll now open it up for questions from the committee. Just please bear in mind that we will be having that deep dive at 4 o'clock, in which we'll go line by line, and we will be discussing and getting a report on each item at 4 o'clock. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll now move on to the balance of the agenda. Thank you. See you at 4. With that, I'm going to recommend time on the balance of the agenda. We'll now move on to the new list. One, under new legislation, approving and modification, with modifications, the renewal application of Frank S. and Mary Politz to have agricultural property at 1661 Dreisbach Drive.
Mr. Chair, we'd like to refer and advertise that for public hearing.
Thank you. All those in favor of referring item number 1, please signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. I should ask for a motion. Item number 2, authorizing a conditional use to establish a child daycare center at 1204 Coral Drive.
Refer and advertise.
Very good. All those in favor of referring and advertise signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. 3 is authorizing a conditional use to establish a child daycare business at 1170 Diagonal.
Refer and advertise for a public hearing.
Okay, very good. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Ayes have it. 4, authorizing a conditional use to construct a discount store on the south side of North Case Avenue.
And refer and advertise.
All those in favor of referring and advertising signify by saying aye. Ayes have it. Okay, number 5. Authorizing the Director of Public Service without formality of publicly advertising for bids to enter into an agreement or agreements with the Ohio and Erie Canalway Coalition for it or the City of Akron to act as the project manager for various projects associated with the Summit Lake Vision Plan, Block 2, 3, and 4, and the Rubber City Heritage Trail, approving the Summit Lake Vision Plan and budget, authorizing the mayor to apply for and expend grant funds in furtherance of the projects, expressing support for the Director of Public Service, designating public access areas around Summit Lake. Mr. Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for having us today. I first want to introduce Mr. Dan Rice, President and CEO of Ohio and Erie Canalway Coalition, who is our nonprofit partner on this project. And I'm going to be real brief, but myself and Michelle DeFiore, Manager of Development Engineering, have worked with Dan as well as Service Director Ludlow on this project. We're here to answer your questions, but to set the stage, as many of you know, back in 2016, the City of Akron, through a coalition of partners, not just the city, but many folks, submitted an application as part of a national grant opportunity called Reimagining the Civic Commons, which was money to assist in a radical review of how we do community engagement around our public spaces. And the plan that we submitted, which was ultimately successful, this was a national competition that we were one of 5 cities to win, was really using the towpath trail downtown from when it enters downtown on Quaker Street all the way through Locks 2, 3, and 4 to Park East to Summit Lake to see if we could use that public asset and the assets along the route to activate them to encourage socioeconomic mixing, economic development opportunities, and a engaged and empowered community through that civic space. So for the past 3 years, many of us sitting here, but Dan as the civic convener, as we call him, the Akron Civic Commons convener, we have been engaged in deep community work, trying to empower residents in and around and stakeholders in and around those 3 sites to dream big and create a vision for what they want these assets to become. And that is what you have before you at least for Summit Lake. What we are hoping to achieve today, and I'll kick it over to Dan here in a moment, is we'd like to go over the Summit Lake Vision Plan. We'd like to, the budget is included. It's a transformational investment into one of our most storied but also most disinvested neighborhoods, to turn Summit Lake into, once again, a high-performing asset that can spark an even greater community redevelopment throughout the neighborhood, as well as looking at Park East, Locks 2, 3, and 4, and the Rubber City Heritage Trail eventually. We have had such a remarkable partnership with the Canal Way for many, many years. As Chairman Fusco knows, and many of you know, Summit County was the first county to complete the trail end to end. We have been in lockstep together, and it's hard. We'd be hard pressed to find a more trusted partner in the community than the Ohio Area Canal Way Coalition. And so, with that context, I'll turn it over to Dan, who can walk you through the plan and what we hope to do there.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Rice.
Thank you very much, James. Is it?
It's on.
Okay,
You're
it's on. Well, first of all, members of council, members of the committee, thank you so much for this opportunity. We are very grateful to be able to partner with the city of Akron on the Akron Reimagining Civic Commons project. It has truly been an incredible journey over the past 4 years. And as I like to say, that the past 4 years, we learned a lot of lessons regarding relationship building, expectations of our neighborhood residents, what they'd like to see regarding public spaces, and how we can even make them better. But we're actually just getting started. And so to kind of set the tone, in addition to the great comments that James actually already shared with us, we'd like to share with you actually a video that was produced just recently. Thank you very much for indulging us. We just wanted to share that with you because we felt that was really kind of a good capstone to our phase one. And I really want to acknowledge the leadership of Mayor Horrigan, Council President Somerville, because we could not do any of these activations without your support, and by giving us that blessing, as well as all members of the administration, Michelle, Chris, and many other folks. And I just want to emphasize the fact that everything that is happening is a result of the residents. Quite honestly, they took a risk on us because there has been this legacy of things being done to and not with, and things promised and not delivered. So quite honestly, they had every reason not to trust us, not to believe us. And so all those activations that you see there are their ideas. We heard very clearly, we just want a place to sit, talk, and have a grill. And sadly, when we talk about equity in public spaces, that comment about one bench at Summit Lake is true. For many years, there was only one bench at Summit Lake, and it didn't even face the lake. And to be perfectly honest with you, that really hurts me personally, because what does that say about how we care about ourselves and about how we care about our public spaces? In many ways, we have turned our back on Summit Lake. But I'm really proud to say that through Akron Civic Commons and through the leadership of Mayor Horgan and council, that is changing. Much like a phoenix, Summit Lake is reviving itself and really bringing back that sense of pride and play, but really because of the residents. And so what we are here to talk about today is, what does that next step look like? And if you can tell that I'm having trouble sitting in my seats because I'm really excited about it. Because the ideas that we have are all, I shared a handout with you, the Summit Lake Vision Plan. And I believe that the administration shared with you regarding what that next step looks like. It's about a $10 million investment. And all these ideas, including putting in a boat launch ramp on the North Shore at Summit Lake, so we can actually have kayaking, canoeing, and paddleboarding. And some people might say, well, what about the health of the lake? Well, we know the health of the lake. We did a study. And the health of Summit Lake is no different than any other lake in the state of Ohio. If you stick your hand in the lake, your skin's not going to peel, you're not going to have fish with 4 eyes or anything. The health of the lake is fine. And we know that because osprey are nesting there. We actually surveyed people who fish, and this is actually the best kept secret in Northeast Ohio, because it's like their favorite fishing hole. So they don't want people to know that it's actually good to fish there. And so we know that the health of the lake is really well. People are interested in engaging with the lake. They're actually attracted to the lake. And so a lot of these activations you see here, we heard loud and clear people want to walk all the way around the lake. And so that's actually one of our top priorities, is to connect the Ohio Near Canal Towpath Trail to the west side of Summit Lake. Ironically enough, through Michelle's leadership, when we first started working on this project, we learned that originally the Towpath Trail was planned to be on the west side of the lake. It was actually designed to be there. And so in many ways, we're just going back and fulfilling that promise that we made many years ago. And I have to be honest with you, I think that trail around the lake is really a huge first step. Once you get that trail around the lake, then people are going to say, what else can I do? Is there a bench that I can sit at? Is there a pavilion that I can have a picnic at with my family or with the family reunion? And other places to fish around the lake. So you see the different components that you see there, the North Shore, the trail around the lake, even some activity on the west side of Summit Lake as well. Again, maybe some play space to get access down to the water, because anywhere in this country, people want to get access to water. They want to get close access to it, whether it's to fish or to maybe just dip their toe in the water, or maybe look at the birds. And so that's what we really wanted to come and share with you this afternoon. We are really excited about the next steps, and very blessed and fortunate the city is making a major commitment of $3 million over 3 years, but understanding that we are committed as your partner to actually going out and raising the remaining $7.6 million. And I can honestly tell you that we are having conversations as we speak about all those potential funding sources. And so I'm confident that we will be able to raise the remaining $7.6 million. I don't have any concern, well, I need to phrase it because we have media here. We're going to work hard to make sure that that happens, because we need to make sure that this vision comes to fruition. We owe this to the residents of the city of Akron. And so I would be happy to answer any questions about the project, the funding, but there are a lot of activities going on right now to make sure that we can meet that fundraising goal.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Having worked up, go ahead, Mr.
Mr.
Hardy.
Chairman, just
Sure.
to add one more thing, and then I don't know, Mr. Luttle or Michelle, but just to clarify for council's purposes what you're approving. So we will obviously, there's $750,000 in the 2020 capital budget that we proposed as part of this project. Obviously, as subsequent capital budgets come in, council will have a chance to review. Dan has committed, as we have, to bring as many updates on the projects to council as needed. But I wanted to clarify that. And then we also have an active state capital grant in this cycle that you'll see in the budget that was provided. So I wanted to let you know that, just to give you put some teeth to what Dan said, we are already actively trying to raise additional dollars. And Chairman Fusco, I know you are always an ROI man. What are we getting for the city's investment? To put $3 million of our dollars in over a course of time and to be able to get that much back from other private sources or other public sources, I think is an incredible way to build out this vision plan, and also sets a great model as we look to other assets like the Rubber City Heritage Trail and Lock 3, that we don't have to do it all ourselves. There are community stewards and other places that we can partner with to actually achieve greater things.
Okay, very good. Mr. Rice, your enthusiasm is appreciated. Having worked with you on a number of projects over the years, it's very contagious, and we appreciate everything you've done, not only with regards to this project, but a lot of projects, as James had mentioned, over time. And you have that magic in terms of trying to figure out how to find more funds and trying to put the money together to get these things done, which is, for our neighborhoods, it's very beneficial for us. Obviously, I mean, for our neighborhoods, it means everything, and getting the trail completed was huge, and it's just fantastic. And thank you for all your hard work on this particular project as well. I don't know if Council Representative Somerville had any comments or anything, or wanted to say anything. Any questions? Okay, very good. No, this is a dynamic plan in terms of activating Summit Lake, which I'd heard. Now, I'm an old guy, but not that old, but years and years and years ago, I'm sure you guys are aware, that was extremely active, and it was a destination. Tell us a little bit about that and what that looked like, and was that part of the plan? Was that part of the planning effort to see what happened? Why so many years ago it was deactivated? So I'm just curious about that.
It's an excellent question. And first of all, thank you so much for those kind remarks, because it just truly is an honor and pleasure to partner with you in the city of Akron. The history of Summit Lake, from our perspective, it's really important because the Ohio Area Canal goes right through Summit Lake. It still goes right through Summit Lake today. So historically, it's been really important from a transportation standpoint. And then you are correct, it pivoted in about the 1920s to a recreational resource. It was the site of Summit Lake Beach Park, and it was a destination, but quite candidly, it was really a destination for only one group of folks, primarily white people. And then, unfortunately, about a year after they opened the lake to swimming, they had to close the lake to swimming because of pollution. And so it's just a bit ironic that we have this incredible recreational resource within our midst, but yet in some ways we've turned our backs on it. But in many ways, I think nature has reclaimed it. And really the residents are the ones that we owe the greatest thanks to, because they identified everything that they wanted how they wanted to interact with the lake. When we actually initially started this project, we talked about maybe ways to celebrate the park aspect of it, the amusement park. But then when we talked to the neighborhood residents, they weren't interested in that. They wanted a place to sit, talk, and have a grill. And so they led us in the direction. And another really interesting anecdote story is we actually interviewed folks who actually would drive to Summit Lake, and they're artists and they're poets. But the only place that they could sit was in their car. Or they'd take little soccer chairs out of their back of their trunks and sit in the parking lot. And again, those are things that just, from our perspective, are unacceptable. That if you have a great public asset, like you have a great park, we talk about equity in our public spaces, that's inequity. And everybody deserves access to accessible, equitable, and welcoming public spaces. And so really, that's just kind of the short history. But again, I cannot emphasize the gratitude that we have to our neighborhood residents, because they were the ones that identified the areas of improvement. They wanted something else to do besides basketball. So our great partner, Summit Metro Parks, stepped up and provided nature programs. Over the past 3 years, they've actually provided, I think conservatively, about 1,200 nature programs by 5,000 residents. So they've really tapped into a need in an urban environment. And so, and again, I want to just emphasize, we're just getting started here. Some Metro Parks, again, through the city's leadership, I could go on forever. I probably should stop here.
Whenever I think of the Erie Canalway Coalition, I think of partnerships. And again, that's due to your hard work and what you've done over the years in terms of those partnerships and delivering on those partnerships, because it takes maintenance as well, obviously, to maintain those. And whenever we say we're going to do something and we do it, then we go on to the next project as you've done. Chris, got a quick question for you in terms of, we're hearing that Summit Lake is safe. Now, obviously, I'm wondering if part of, obviously, our sewer, CSO and so on and so forth is part of that. Just a question.
Actually, the Summit Lake area doesn't have a lot of CSOs. It's
Okay.
mostly all separated down there. In the years it was built, there isn't combination sewers, so it's sanitary sewers that run through there. So we have dealt with some stormwater issues down there in the past, and we've remedied some of those things. But just to build on to what James and to what Dan said, is the partnership that when we first went down there, and Michelle's done a great job with this whole project, some of the things talking to the residents, but also talking to the people that would ride their bikes, they would, if they're traveling south, they get down to 76, they didn't know, what is that? I mean, it was signage. And when you're coming from the north through Barberton, you get up toward the floating bridges, what is that? So it was the whole perception that has changed through there. And getting more people down there, interacting with the residents, and the residents have been fantastic through this whole thing. And to build on what Summit Metro Parks is doing, I remember the first fishing derby they had down there with little kids. And my wife and I are riding bikes down a couple Sundays later, and you see kids down there fishing, which you never saw that before. So it's been a great, great project, and we're just building from here. And the maintenance end of it, partnering with Ohio and Erie Canal with this agreement, we can bring in more people to adopt part of the trail. And some of the things we've done, you've seen the murals go up and some of the lighting under the bridges. That's all part of this agreement that we will build on that moving forward.
Okay, good. So the maintenance side is going to be ours
We're
exclusively?
going to
or
partner.
is
We're going to
Metro
partner
Parks
together,
part? Okay.
yes.
Very similar to the,
Correct, Councilman, if I may build on that. Our organization will actually be the applicant for the Clean Ohio grant application, and part of that application process is we are committing to 15 years of maintaining and operating the trail in partnership with the city. And from our experience, we are already doing that with other sections of the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail. For instance, we maintain sections of the Towpath Trail down in Tuscarawas County, and we have similar agreements with the Tuscarawas County Commissioners. So we have the experience and knowledge about how to maintain those sections of trail.
perfect, very good.
And ODNR has been great. They manage the water.
Absolutely.
They've been a fantastic partner in this.
Very good, thank you. President Somerville?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that really this has been more than just a plan, really just to beautify around Summit Lake, but it has really brought the community together. And Mr. Rice knows this. When we first started, although Summit Lake was one community, we found out that there was really so much division in that community. And through the Civic Commons process, we were actually able to bring people together on both sides of the lake, bring people together in Park East, and really become one community to create this plan. The other thing that I think is amazing with the leadership of Mr. Rice, what he has done, is our volunteers and ambassadors. We've made all these investments, but making sure that people in the community protect those spaces, and they do that. So it's just a great project, a great program. I just want to thank Mr. Rice for all of his leadership.
Representative Samples?
Thank you. I have a question maybe for Chris or Dan. You mentioned that the lake is environmentally safe now. I've been born and raised here in Akron, and what you all have done down there is amazing. We had our own built-in thoughts about Summit Lake, and and the community surrounding there. So when you talk to some of the residents, they weren't interested in the swimming aspect of it. I think that's really more of a cultural thing that we will have to work on, because a lot of our babies don't know how to swim. So talking about swimming is not going to be the first thing they think of. So I think if we're able to get back to a point where it can be a swimming beach-like setting, or if there's ever any plans to do a controlled lake drain and refill. I think I talked to Jackie at Keep Akron Beautiful about that before, to get rid of that stigma that we all have in the back of our mind. And as beautiful as it looks, some of them still will have that stigma because, again, a lot of our babies can't swim. And I think it would be a beautiful thing to get to a point where it is a beach-like setting, because it looks wonderful down there. Looks totally different from when I grew up. And I commend you all for the work that you've done down there.
Thank you. Mr. Swirsky?
Yeah, I've had a number of opportunities to walk around the lake, to follow the trail. I've also attended a number of training sessions at Summit Lake Community Center, so I've been there quite often. And the feeling you get when you see the osprey fly over the water is something's just awe, you know, and really thinking about the collaboration and the hard work that went into this. This is just wonderful, because it takes a very, very deep problem and sore on our city, and you're turning it into something that we can all be proud of. This is just wonderful. Good work. Thank you so much.
Very good. Further questions or comments? Ms. Mobian?
Thank you very much. I tell you what I like. I like the concept of engaging the people. And I'm not sure if Michelle had something to do with that. I'd like to know who did that, because that is critical, because the section of Summit Lake area is very transient. Then there are other sections where you have a lot of older people. And one of the things that we talk about at SSAB meetings is that how are we going to continue to engage our seniors in some of this future planning? And I know the Reach Center that you have there, I don't know if you had meetings in the Reach Center or not, but I know we're still trying to utilize that great facility that's there. So if you could talk a little bit more about that, you know, how you engage people. Thank you.
Michelle, turn your microphone on. Thank you.
Steve Fior?
Oh, it's just not working.
There have been many meetings at the Reach Center. There is a Summit Lake Community Council that happens once a month, so the leaders of the organizations at the community center come together. So we've had many opportunities to go in to present to them, and then they're able to take the information back to their constituents. And there's also been community meetings at the community center, the Kenmore Community Center as well. And we've had several front yard meetings as well to talk about the trail around the lake.
Cool. Very cool. Thank you. Thank you.
I would only add that,
Mr. Hardy?
if I may, I would only add that, you know, Dan and Michelle have really taken the lead. Dan, in particular, as the convener, but Council President Somerville always is quick to ask when we say, okay, we're bringing the Summit Lake vision, whose vision? And we have tried, and I think have succeeded over the last 3 years of really changing the way that we approach community development, so much so that when you read the OID 5-year framework, a lot of those tenets and principles that we learned through this process made it into there. Now, changing a culture that's built up, you know, at an organization like the city over time is tough, but I credit Michelle and everyone sitting behind here and everything that there really is a legitimate attempt to take what we've done at Summit Lake in the Civic Commons process and broaden it to how we approach our work throughout the city.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Further questions or comments? I have one brief one. Can you provide for us, and thank you for sharing all of this, just a brief description, reference the Rubber City Heritage Trail and where that's part of the legislation here, so just a brief.
I'd be happy to, Councilman. The Rubber City Heritage Trail, and I apologize, I didn't bring maps for everyone, but it is a pretty cool trail project because it basically follows a former rail line that connected all the tire companies. So General, Goodyear, Goodrich, and Firestone. And really through the city's leadership, the property ownership is pretty much 85% still owned by the city, which is amazing. So if you are familiar at all with some of these other urban trails like the 606 in Chicago or the High Line in New York City that basically connect neighborhoods, that's exactly what the Rubber City Heritage Trail is. And the beauty of it is it connects with the Ohio Near Canal Towpath Trail down at Summit Lake. But it really connects neighborhoods, the University of Akron, Middlebury, downtown. Goodyear, Heights. And so what's really amazing about this is you don't necessarily need a car to access this trail. And vice versa, when you're on the towpath trail, you get a chance to hop off the towpath trail and explore the Akron neighborhoods. And so we actually completed a plan last year in 2019, and then really through the city's leadership, you actually applied to the AMATS, Akron Metropolitan Area Transportation Study, and it's my understanding it's actually one of the highest prioritized grants. And so actually for the first section of the Rubber State Heritage Trail on the eastern side over by Innovation Way, it's slated that that will actually be the first section that will get developed. So fantastic project, and again, another example of a great partnership that we're very, very excited about.
Absolutely.
And the only thing I would add is we'll make sure that every council member gets a copy of that plan that was completed in their mailbox. And then the city's application, Dan talked about he'll be applying for the Summit Lake Trail. We will be applying to the Clean Ohio Fund this year from the city for the phase 1 of the Rubber City Heritage.
Very cool. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll discuss that briefly, reference the budget as well.
Yes.
In those discussions. So thank you so much. Is there a hurry on this? Or is, I don't know what the
It's a pleasure of the committee.
Pleasure is, but are you in a hurry? Suspend the rules? There's a motion for suspension of rules. Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Thank you. We'll report that out this evening.
Thank you so very much.
Report. Thank you again for all you do, Mr. Rice. Thank you. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.